Welcome in, everybody, to Extreme Radio, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online, mention 8-Man Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to our third show back. Third show back for the year, of course, starting late. And, wow, we're on the eve of the first game of action we're about to see this Friday, as far as we're aware. So let me start off. We finalized our color analyst for the season, and it's a great pleasure to have him on board. Really excited for him. Mr. Zachary Loan, a great friend of mine with the NSMA chapter. And Zachary, first off, welcome to your debut of Extreme Radio, but looking forward to calling games with you throughout the season.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So just to give people a little bit of a insight to your background and everything, tell us about your career in sports media, how you got to MTSU and such, and kind of eventually got to this point.
Okay. So in high school, I helped stats with the local newspaper and everything. Ended up deciding to come to MTSU, and I mean, still early on in my career there. For instance, like I'm going to be a sophomore, so still have plenty of room to grow.
Right.
In SMA, we founded an SMA together. Me and you did, so that was fun. And
many of the great people who founded the National Sports Media Association chapter at MTSU for sure, but
yes.
the two of us get the pleasure of putting that on a resume, of having that as a starting chapter. And so far as being the founding and current treasurer, well, right now you haven't had as much workload, but once we start doing fundraising and everything, you should be good to go in that regard. Yeah, we're really excited to have you on board for the season, and hopefully we'll. What's the biggest thing you're looking forward to going into the season with being able to call games consistently on air?
Well, I mean, for instance, watched my first game in person on Friday, first inter squad, and tons of talent on the field out there. Been watching film, watched Tennessee Heat, for instance, coming up this week, and been watching film on CCS. And I just can't wait.
It's gonna be great to see the game this Friday. And speaking of, before we get into one of two guests for the day, we just want to let everybody know the schedules for the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference have not been finalized from league sources right now. They're trying to get some schools to move around games. From what we've told, I believe they have them all submitted. It's just they're trying to get schools to move them around because of differing dates, trying to make sure that everybody's aligned and good to go. But we're hoping that they're going to give us a schedule pretty soon. And the interesting part of it as well, per Governor Lee's 55th executive order, the TSSAA, they only their start is the 21st. So they've got a bunch of games, but it's interesting that of teams in 8-man football, this is essentially a kickoff game for 8-man football with CCS and the Heat because no other teams are active. They may have some inter-squad matches that don't actually count for a game, or they may have individual team scrimmages like we saw last week. But it's interesting. This is essentially a kickoff game for 8-man football, and interesting to see how that goes. And to give us a little more insight into essentially the 8-man football kickoff game for the season is none other than the head coach of the Tennessee Heat, Ryan Scott. He's been with the program for many years now. He's been involved, and he's also, I believe, doubles over as their director of athletics with the program, one of the great independent organizations that gathers about 5-6 different homeschool programs. It gives them a chance, not just in football, but in other sports such as volleyball and basketball, to be able to play sports where they otherwise would not be able to. So we're pleased to welcome for his 2020 debut, Mr. Ryan Scott. Welcome into the show, Coach. Tell me, how has the offseason been for you, your family, and the rest of the Tennessee Heat?
Well, I appreciate it, Spencer. Thanks for having me on, and excited about getting things kicked off this week. Don't mean to come out of the blocks with a quick correction, but just to update you,
Sure.
I used to serve as the athletic director. Jeremy Day is now serving that role because I have, as you probably have witnessed, way too many things that I'm juggling and trying to be effective in the roles I'm in. I used to be the head baseball coach, no longer thankfully am I serving in that so I can really focus on football. But yeah, everything else you said, our organization is definitely trying to continue to make homeschool sports a viable option with all that's gone on in 2020. We are continuing to navigate through how we can serve the homeschool community and those coming and going. So we're just excited about the opportunity to continue to do that this year, given all that has been at risk with COVID. So thank you for inviting me on. Excited to tell you what we're up to, but man, we're just plugging along and getting ready for hopefully another great year.
I know that James won't be on until later in the show, but I'm sure he'll be the first of many people, including myself, that'll say it helps when you have somebody coordinating things like that, especially with and as you mentioned with the Tennessee Heat trying to double over as both an athletic director and a coach. It gets difficult at times, whether it's an independent organization or with the school and such. So it's good that you have somebody assisting you with that throughout the season. Really,
well, some of the history, just I mean, I
Sure.
was in that role, but we lost our football coach before, and James was somewhat involved in that at the time, but trying to help us launch our middle school program years ago. But Corey Sanders was our coach, and because his wife had to move away, we found out that he couldn't coach as of the middle of May. So it was really more of just a desire to not see our football program go away that I made the decision to focus on what I thought I could be the most effective at. And that's when I decided it made more sense for me to step out of the athletic director role. But yeah, man, it's been a great experience to get to have all the different experiences I've had with the Tennessee Heat. It's been a wonderful organization to serve in.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. So let's start out with we'll start out with, obviously I asked you about the off season, but let's start out with last year. I know that several people have heard the we told about it first breaking news with you guys deciding to go independent of the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference, and not trying to rehash old news, but tell me about how that. How since that decision being made of going independent, going into 2000 and going into the 2020 season, take me into the thought process of why you guys stay independent as an organization, and how that benefits your program over joining back with MTAC.
That's a great question, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to clear some stuff up, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are unsure as to the reasons why, and we have no ill feelings whatsoever. We've been around with the MTAC really kind of since its beginning, the Heat organization, under many different people that were leading kind of that board and organization, inviting us to be part of the MTAC conference and multiple sports. We have always been nothing but upfront with the fact that we do not have any distance limitations with regard to the athletes that we have. We just honestly, most seasons in most sports could never field a full roster if we did limit to kind of a territorial 25-mile radius, which is currently the rules in the MTAC. And so the previous president of the MTAC board was not enforcing that. We were very upfront each year, have talked about that issue. No, don't worry about it. Last year with the changeover to John.
This is John Horner.
I'm sorry?
It was John Horner with Lancaster Christian.
Yeah, John Horner at Lancaster, good guy that I've coached against in baseball. I've known him for a long time. He was pushed with regard to a challenge on that as to whether or not they were going to enforce that rule. Unfortunately, it was still on the books, and so it was really a simple decision for us, because we just realized, we've always kind of been a square peg in a round hole, and there's been times when we were able to serve the MTAC with giving competition to other teams and fitting well, but honestly, just an appreciation for who we are as an organization and who the MTAC is, it just made sense that we no longer fit. And so leaving hopefully on a good note and keeping great relationships. And thankfully, we've got many of the MTAC schools scheduled this year. We wish nothing but the best to the MTAC, but we also know as an independent program, we're going to be able to really be very upfront with everybody and who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and giving them the opportunity to decide whether they want to compete against us or not. Thankfully, there's been a lot of years of preparing for that, even before last year. So having to make that tough decision in the timeline that we had to, thankfully, we as a board, myself as a coach, we had explored the possibilities of that for multiple seasons. And so it was really just kind of we were led to know that it was time to make that decision.
And that you guys with the Tennessee Heat, you essentially become sort of the Freedom Cowboys of Tennessee, where now as an independent organization, you're still able to schedule with MTAC schools that will compete against you. And as you mentioned, fortunately, you still have plenty of schools that are willing to have that competition, because that's the interesting thing about you guys with being a massive around 5-6 homeschool programs. You've got talent coming from different places, and not to say that there's talent not coming from schools by them recruiting, but you guys have the opportunity to bring in from multiple homeschool organizations, to bring in different people from different backgrounds, and give people an opportunity to play football, whereas they haven't had that before. And that's the Freedom Cowboys have done that so successfully for many years as an independent organization, but it just means that another state is able to do that now with Tennessee and having you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. The Freedom Cowboys were certainly one of the programs we looked to in trying to decide who we wanted to be going forward. Some other ones as well, but we just definitely realized that there's some rules that we can definitely comply with. For example, we've got two boys that age-wise would love to play another year with our program. The Corley boys, the two twins that played for us, that came from Clarksville High School last year. But we recognize that in order to be as equitable as we can be with our limitations, we're not going to let a player who has already started his TSSAA clock in ninth grade and all the rules that are in the MTAC. We try to comply with all of that. We don't play the fifth-year seniors, and we expect our athletes to show evidence of all the same things that they'd have to if they were in the MTAC. So we're really trying to be as legitimate as we can be, but also recognizing that we are different. And like I said, we just want to be up front, and we want to give teams the opportunity to compete against what we hope to be is not only good football, but also in other sports for that matter, but also a team that they're going to have a great experience, one that's Christ focused, that's going to try to definitely compete, but also promote good sportsmanship and just brotherhood and fellowship. We just really enjoy relationships, and I think sports are a great platform for unity. And in a time like this, that's never needed more than it's needed right now.
Absolutely. And you've alluded to it a few times with the times that we're in. Obviously, COVID-19 is still taking the world by storm, and everybody, each state is taking their own precautions and such. Unfortunately, with Governor Lee signing his executive order, schools and the TSSAA are allowed to start on time with contact sports. So take me through what steps the Tennessee Heat are taking, because I know per Governor Lee's executive order, you are not required to follow TSSAA guidelines as an independent organization. You're only required to follow the Tennessee Pledge guidelines, which I haven't read too in-depth to that to know what the full differences are between those two. But take me into what steps the Tennessee Heat as an organization will be taking in response to COVID-19.
Yeah, well, it all started back in certainly in March, like it did for everybody. We had to cancel our archery and track and field and baseball seasons, and so we quickly as a board realized that it was time to follow the lead of our leadership. We believe in that. We believe that's by our faith what we should do, and follow those that are in positions of authority. And so we jumped on that right away, and it was really hard for, of course, some of our teams, and quickly everybody followed suit. So when we got to a place where we realized that it was time to start with some of our fall sports that we train in the summer, like football, like cheerleading and dance, and even volleyball now, we have met several times as a board, just praying through and talking how do we deal with it and what should we do. So we initially started after Governor Lee's orders with the no contact to start practices. We started those back in latter part of May. We did no contact other than catching footballs and hand sanitizing in between, hand sanitizing the footballs, keeping social distancing and 6 feet. So we try to just comply with every element of that, just really focusing on physical training, getting the boys off the couch, letting them at least see each other, even if it was slightly from a distance, but also trying to get better, preparing and hoping for this year. And then, of course, we were delighted to see that the rules changed and the Governor Lee submitted that. But you'll have to tell me whether or not we fall under the TSSAA rules or not, or in Governor Lee's orders. We just made the decision, trying to just lead well as an organization, that we were just going to comply with every bit of that. So when you come to our home game this week, we're going to try to follow every element of that as best that we can to try to promote, again, unity and following the authority figures that we're under.
Yeah, and hopefully, and of course, hopefully with our mission, of course, with exposing the players and having broadcasts and such, that's one of the things we've talked about as well internally is that we also give a unique opportunity. We give a unique opportunity to players and their families as well. Of that, if they don't feel comfortable at this point going out in public, even though they still want to support their kids, they're able to watch it remotely in the safety of their homes through our broadcast. So we've talked about that internally, and we're excited. Obviously, you announced that there since you guys are the only game this weekend. We'll be live there from Charlie Daniels Park, which is going to be it's going to be fun. And that actually brings me into my next question. So, you as an organization have previously played your home games at Mount Juliet Christian Academy, and I believe you had one home game last year where you tested at Charlie Daniels Park. And as far as we're aware, the decision now for your organization is to host all of your home games at Charlie's Daniels Parks this year. So tell me what led into that decision. I'm assuming it was a good impression with Charlie Daniels last year to lead to that point, but take me into what led you guys to make that decision to change home venues.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a lot of pieces. I'll try to be real brief about it. Last year, we were really scrambling, given the fact that we didn't get the opportunity to participate in the MTAC playoffs. We weren't satisfied to just wrap up our season. We wanted to keep playing and see if we could maybe get another win or two and have some competition. So we invited the Freedom Cowboys, after already playing them earlier in the year. We invited them to play in what we have now called our inaugural Independence Bowl. And so we passed out. They won the trophy. We gave them the trophy last year. We put together, had a lot of fun, and it was a great game that we did do at Charlie Daniels. But that pointed us to the reality that we were struggling to find another field. MJCA, Mount Juliet Christian Academy, has always been so accommodating, such great partners with us. So we're just so appreciative of them. But we couldn't find another local high school field, and we called all over Middle Tennessee, probably about 30 different schools that just really would not accommodate letting us play a football game there, which was a shock to us. I never thought, having offered $1,000 to rent somebody's field and having that been rejected, I thought that really shocked me. And so we settled on Charlie Daniels, and we made it a great game. And it was really kind of surprisingly, it went so well. We were just so surprised that this could really be a home field for us, that for 8-man football, the dimensions are just like any other 80 and 40 yard width. And it has lights, and it has even a press box area, so you can get up high, and so just everything that we need. And already having a great relationship with the park. My wife and I have been involved with the park in other ways, and they've just been so good to us. But another big factor, just to finish this off, was that MJCA's field was destroyed in the tornado.
Right.
So part of the reason why we are playing all of our home games, it only resulted actually in 3 home games this year because of all the shifting and changing of schedules. But it out of necessity, because MJCA field will not be ready for play until next season. They're going through a massive renovation of that because the tornado destroyed it. So even our home game against Red Boiling Springs, we went back to them, and we'll be moving next week to play them at their place, and then they'll reciprocate in 2021. So we'll have quite a bit of home games in 2021, but that's what happened.
Yeah, I knew that there was a lot of damage over in the Mount Juliet area. I never fully read into how much damage was to the MJCA field, but it just shows how some of the devastation, even though that was earlier this year, there's still some damage left over all across Nashville. And I mean, there are great people doing a lot of work to fix all of it, but of course, in one situation, they're still trying to sift through all of the mess there. So
yeah.
As an independent organization, you guys, I believe last year you tested one 11-man game, and you've had some talks about doing that kind of stuff. So, as an independent organization, Evangel does this a little bit, even though they're an official school. They play both 8-man and 11-man games, and of course this year you're testing out with several 11-man games. Take me into what's the thought process on testing 11-man games here? This possibly a premonition to moving the program towards an independent 11-man program? Is this just to test the waters and see where you're going with it?
No, I mean yes and no.
Hmm.
Having looked at programs like Evangel, great example, we definitely were inspired by that. It can be done. Some coaches don't really like the idea of having to jump back and forth from 8 man and 11 man. It's obviously same rules, but a lot of different strategic challenges, and the idea of trying to teach high school boys how to jump between both types of structures it's definitely a challenge. But Evangel was able to reveal to us and some others programs I looked at that do that, that it can be done. And so I started again several years ago preparing through this. I don't know that you would have remembered this, but 3 years ago, in my first season as the head coach for the Heat, after we had co-opted with Hendersonville
Hmm.
Christian Academy the year previous, because we only had 12 boys, we ended up playing Sacred Heart on our last game of the season in our first 11-man game ever. So we really tested the waters then, won that game, which was pretty exciting. And it was really has always been the plan since that game to keep that strategy as part of where we may need to go, whether it's because we're getting a mass increase of players. Given all that we've gone through this year, we
Hmm.
weren't sure if we were going to see a lot of new homeschool students. We haven't really, but that doesn't mean that that won't happen. But so in other words, the planning began years ago, and so from playbooks that we've designed and the way we run our offense and defense, we wanted to be able to seamlessly transition back and forth, and we'll see how well we do that this year. But I would tell you that having seen the program almost fall apart because of lack of numbers, I just wanted to make sure that we had a very flexible ability to do whatever was needed based on the numbers and the interest that we had.
Hmm.
So it is not our plan. That's part of the no to your question.
Yep.
It is not our plan to go 100% 11-man football. If we continue to see an increase in numbers, if we get into 30 and 40 number of players, then we will actually definitely move into more 11-man games, probably 5 or 6 11-man and 4 or 5 8-man, but probably keep it fairly balanced. Until we see more numbers than we see right now, we'll probably keep it 2 or 3. And so, based on what we have right now, I would tell you it's not my current plan to go more than 2 or 3 11-man games in 2021.
Hmm.
But it just really depends on how well we do this year and how many players we start picking up if we do. So that's kind of the idea, is to be able to evolve based on what God's sending us.
Hmm. And that's another interesting element to it, is that with experimenting with several of those games, you're not only testing it to see how that option can work, but it's also for some of your players that may want to pursue football at a higher level. They also have that real I don't want to say standard, but more real world experience, because at least with college football and with the NFL, both of those are 11-man systems. So that way, it can give them an opportunity to test out on an 11-man side of it, to see if that's what they really want to pursue, if it's and to give that on their resume and say, yes, I was part of a homeschool program, but we did both 8-man and 11-man football, so I have experience with both. So I think that's a really beneficial tool for your player base.
Yeah, it's definitely a perception thing, in my opinion. There's a lot
Right.
of, unfortunately, and you guys know this, which is why you're doing what you do and what you've been doing, trying to change the stigma or the perception that 8-man football is not really high school football.
Hmm.
As you know, and I know very well, having coached for many years, that it is high school football, and you
Hmm.
definitely are seeing more and more 8-man football playing high school students going to getting collegiate scholarships, playing in the NFL now. And so we do have a little bit of that hurdle to get the attention that they need. And 11-man football will draw more attention and kind of show that our boys can play at that level and in that scope. But I think a lot of it, honestly, is stigma. I think that we love 8-man football. I want to say that our goals are really all focused around this year around 8-man football, and I don't see us unless we started seeing numbers north of 40 year in and year out, us ever walking away from 8-man football.
Hmm. Now, you guys are now hosting your home games this year. Even though it's a few of them at Charlie Daniels Park, and we know, of course, on July 6th, the world lost the famous American singer-songwriter, with all the contributions he's done, not just around Nashville but around different programs, different things. I know several people at my University of MTSU have met him before, and everybody's just talked about how great of a soul he was and everything. So, with you guys playing at Charlie Daniels Park, and of course this Friday being your first home game, playing there for the season, are there any special plans on celebrating Charlie Daniels' life, or any previews of what sort of memoriam you guys might do on Friday night?
Nothing that's publicly that we publicly announced. I mean, we definitely have. I did order a number 2 Charlie Daniels jersey with his name on it, and we're giving that as a gift to the park.
Perfect.
They've committed to hang that up in the center that they've got there with their locker rooms and basketball facilities and other meeting rooms. So definitely want to put a Heat jersey. We put number 2 on it. It was a suggestion from one of our coaches that he's was a man of faith and somebody who didn't see himself as number 1, but he was second, as many have stated they are, that he looked to a higher power. So we wanted to not only honor him and his great life, but also honor his faith. And so that's why we will be donating that and have ordered that for the park. We do potentially have plans to do more than that, but we haven't made any other final plans at this point.
Sounds absolutely perfect to give that jersey to the park and to honor his legacy and everything in that. Well, Coach, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It feels like it only ran for 10, 15 minutes on our review, but it went about 30. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show and get your insights and everything. And we're looking forward to covering your guys' game against Christian Community, one of the oldest and greatest rivalries in 8-man football in Tennessee between you and the Christian Community Colts. So we're looking forward to it this Friday again. But again, Coach, thank you for giving us your time on Sunday.
Thanks for coming, and thanks for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate what you guys do.
All right, thank you, Coach. We'll see you on Friday.
All right, see you then.
All right, while our next guest is getting ready, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, Zachary, from the insights you heard from Coach Scott and everything, I think that's a really great tribute with the Charlie Daniels jersey for the park.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. Having a Charlie Daniels Park, of course, and being able to play at a park where someone so influential to the community, and being able to give them a jersey that, I mean, has your name and everything on it, and then Daniels too. I mean, perfect.
Yeah, can't get any better than that. And I think that's kind of, nobody at all predicted, of course, you couldn't think last year when they played their one game at Charlie Daniels Park, and then they decided to have their home game. Nobody would think, how it would. It seems as if it's perfectly aligned. No one has thought about it, but I think that goes for a really perfect alignment, especially with this being the kickoff game for the season and everything, and with football coming back and all that. I think it's going to be really special on Friday night for that kickoff. We'll be talking about it a lot on the broadcast, but it's pretty special. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now making his debut on Extreme Radio, he's a great friend of the show. We've had many great conversations with him. This next guest, he's a coordinator and one of the executives of the Mid-State Officials Association and the Middle Tennessee Football Officials Association. He's really great to talk to. He's been around the football game a long time, and it kind of amazes me how we took from him starting to coordinate with MTAC on a full-time basis for coordinating his officials with them. It's kind of amazing how it took us from 2018 to now for us to have him as his Extreme Radio debut. We're going to make it a yearly tradition, of course. But it's really an honor to have now Mr. Ronnie Perkins with his Extreme Radio debut. Ronnie, friend, it's good to hear from you, man. Welcome to Extreme Radio.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you do.
Appreciate it, Ronnie, and thanks for everything you do to keep all the players safe and keep the games fair. So let's just go into, since this is your Extreme Radio debut, I figure might as well let the people know who haven't otherwise talked to you on an in-depth basis. Take us through your background, your officiating experience, and kind of your path from when you started out in officiating, the path to coordinating with the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference or coordinating with its member schools on a full-time basis.
Well, I am beginning my 44th year. I started in Knoxville with the TSSAA, and then I transferred to Nashville in 1979, um, and I've enjoyed it every year since then. But there was a hunger in me that realized that my customers are the children that play. It's never been about the officials, the coaches, the athletic directors, or the parents, but it's only about the number of kids that are on the field. Do right by a child, and then you've done what you're supposed to do. And I really was firmly committed that if the kids are going to be committed to off-season work, the officials need to be committed to off-season work,
Mm-hmm.
training, developing, watching film, getting better, because the goal is to make an environment where the kids play dictate the game and that we're no longer a part of it. Um, and then I created that organization in 1998. And then since then, it has grown to what it is now. Hats off to Lighthouse. They were the first people that reached out to me and asked me to be a part of that process. And then from then on, uh, as the team saw the quality and the product we were putting on the field, they wanted to be a part of it. And I'm grateful and blessed to be a part of that with MTAC. Uh, I'm going to miss Coach Scott. I like Ryan. Now, Ryan was a good guy. uh, but I mean, I understand the dynamics of what he was talking about, but you're talking about one of the really, truly good guys that were part of the eight-man experience and what he did for his kids. Uh, if there was a Mount Rushmore, he should be on it.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. So I mentioned it a little bit with Coach Scott, but COVID-19, of course, taking the world by storm. And what's one of the more interesting parts of it is the officiating side. Because you see, at least in the NFL, their plan is to assign crews to regions to limit the spread and limit issues with traveling in between states. And already 7 officials from the NFL have opted out of the season. I believe it was between 20 or 30 officials in the TSSAA have opted out. Take me inside of the MSOA and the procedures you're taking in response to COVID-19. Tell me possibly if there are any of your officials who have opted out, and what game day, how different it's going to look on game day in 2020 as opposed to 2019.
Well, the good news is we've been blessed that no one has opted out. Everybody is committed to the mission of impact and eight-man football, and we want to be there as an equal and viable partner. For one, game day, the administration is committed to doing the temperature checks.
Mm-hmm.
We have our social distancing while we have our pregame meeting. People don't realize it that we're on game site 2 hours before kickoff.
Mm-hmm. Same with us.
Going through our pregame meeting to prepare for that game. Uh, I mean, showing up and getting out of the car 10 minutes before the game and throwing your shirt on. You may or may not know your crew. You may or may not be in uniform. That's a total disservice to high school football. And eight-man football is high school football.
Yep.
They deserve and they should expect us to have the same level of professionalism when it comes to officiating, regardless of the level. And that's what I'm committed to. I've committed to the league, the president, the individual programs. The athletic directors are amazing. The coaches are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They all are willing to interact with you and be very frank about what their expectations are. And I try to partner with all of them to be someone or as an organization who can partner with their goals and what they're trying to accomplish, as opposed to being a third leg who's just in the way. I just don't want to be that guy. I've never wanted an organization like that, and I won't accept that as part of our organization.
That's really wise words, and trying to be a support beam instead of a wrecking ball. Because especially as an official, and like you said, your clients your customers are the children, and if you're not keeping them safe, then you shouldn't be involved. It's as simple as that. So you mentioned that the schools and the people you work with, they're all wonderful. They're willing to work with you. We've talked about this on the show before. The idea of having Friday Night Lights and Boys of Fall is just an amazing tradition that a lot of schools enjoy. But we've talked about it on the show before, trying to have more games on Thursdays and Saturdays, so that way there's more of a primetime spotlight on those kids and more of a chance for them to get more exposure because everybody's watching it on them, everyone's seeing that. But one thing that people may not know is how Thursdays and Saturdays, if you have more games spread out on a 3-day weekend, that benefits the officiating side. It gives more of a chance for you guys to get the best crews at every single game. So take me into that on from your perspective as an officiating coordinator, why games being on Thursdays and Saturdays in addition to Fridays helps out your program.
Well, it helps us, and ultimately it helps the league and the kids. And the reason why is twofold.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a different year. So I'm of the opinion, and that's why our COVID plan has been in place since the middle of March,
Mm-hmm.
that we presented recently to the league. But we're always planning for the worst case scenario, hoping for the best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But if there were to be an outbreak or things of that nature, having the games on Thursday and Saturday would make sure and certain that we could cover the games. If we don't have an outbreak, that's an opportunity for the value that your 8-man extreme, and I've got to brag on you a little bit, brings to the table, because the technology that you bring to the table has been a godsend to what we're trying to do as an officiating group for MTech, not for us, but for MTech and for the kids that we service. You have a unique situation where nobody in this state has what MTech has because of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't want you to blush, but I do want you to understand the value of what you bring to the table is immense.
Yeah.
But by spreading the games out, if we don't have an outbreak, now they get the benefit of having their own day to be able to be highlighted so that moms and dads and grandmas and aunties and cousins and brothers and sisters can see the game. If they feel threatened and don't feel comfortable coming to the game, they can still see the game.
Mm-hmm.
If it does have an outbreak, I can now take crews, because here's the thing that's going to be tragic, and I hope it doesn't happen. Let's just say that on one particular week you have an outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, team 1 and team 2 are now quarantined, and then all 6 of those officials are quarantined. And then next week, the teams they were going to play don't have anybody to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope it doesn't happen,
Right.
but you need to be prepared for the reality that could really happen.
Exactly. And I want to go back a little bit, of course, appreciate all the warm words about us, but I want to go back to at least one situation where you mentioned the technology, because I was reminded about this. We were at Riverside Christian and Franklin Christian last year, and there was a case of a kid who had an ejection. He was ejected for, I believe it was a block. It was either a block in the back or some tackle from behind. In the unfortunately, the player who was the receiving end of that, he had to get carted off by an ambulance, and of course he had, I believe it was minor neck injuries he walked away with. But because we were at that game, that was another camera angle perspective that we had on the play, so that not just from your officiating side, you guys could look and affirm the ejection and say, yes, we made the right call on this. But that film was also sent to MTAC, so that as a board for potential suspension through the season, they could look at that and realize they could look at that and see the additional angle and realize why you guys made the call that you did. Even though it wasn't the exact perspective the official had on there, it affirmed it. And that's at least one example of where when we're involved, we're able to show you guys what happened on the field, and you can either get better, or if there's I would hope this doesn't happen, but if there's an ejection case where an official got it wrong, they can look back at it from a different perspective up in the broadcast booth, and they can realize, well, this ejection, we maybe need to be careful about what we're looking at in the future.
And that's true. And the thing is, I have never been the proponent that we're always right. I've been the proponent of getting it right.
Right.
And your high def quality of your video that you have is freaking amazing. And we made the call in real time and ejected the player, but your film supported, because there was a little pushback on whether we had gone too far, but the film was conclusive and without prejudice and question that they made the right call on the field at that time.
Right.
And that's why I say you, as a third wheel partner in all this. I mean, I don't know what the behind the scene things are that are involved with it, but all I know is that every time I needed to reach out to your media outlet for information that would help us help the league, you have been spot on. And it's like, wow. Like, can I just get you to come to all my games? Do I need to pay money to get you at every game? What do I need to do? What do I need to do?
Yeah, we would definitely do that. We've had some schools ask us beforehand about some of us have asked how much would it cost for you to come to every game? We'd be like, we'll negotiate. We'll negotiate with you. It's just a matter of having a conversation. So we'll negotiate for sure. So you mentioned about the technology as well, and you mentioned about spreading the games. We talked about that. With COVID-19 and with everything that's coming on, I know that officiating is an ongoing evolution to try and get better and do the right thing and make the right calls and such. So with your organization specifically going into the year, are there any features you're going to be testing for the season? Any different procedures you're trying, not just for COVID, but to try and get better as officials?
Well, we're making some changes. Normally, the wing officials, and those are the guys on the sideline, the line judge and the head linesman. I think people will be aware of. There's an official on my sideline. Those are what we call the wing officials. Are now going to be on the field, but we've expanded that box to 4 yards. Where by rule, normally we give a verbal warning if you violate that box, a 5-yard penalty, and a 15-yard penalty. Well, now this year, any violation of that box is going to be a 15-yard penalty. Our goal is not to actually be flag happy and penalize it. My goal is that if you think about it, just like any law that's in place to deter you, that will deter individuals from being in that box, because that individual cannot see behind him. So therefore, I'm trying to keep some distance.
Right.
The other thing that we have incorporated and shared with the league is that normally on a fumble, we get in there and dig it out and try to find out who has it. Well, my hope is that little Billy has been in the weight room and really done what he needed to do. We're not going in to dig it out.
Right.
Whoever comes out with the football, that's whose ball it is. And we've shared that with the league, and hopefully they've shared that with the coaches. And then on a sideline situation where a kid may go out of bounds on the opposite sideline, we normally go in for his safety and security and pull him out first. We're not going for him. I hope he has friends on Instagram or Twitter or whatever else that just make sure I get back to my side.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah.
We're just not going to be in a situation where I'm going to put our guys in situations where they have to dwell into groups of people. We're going to keep our distance and officiate the game on the field as warranted. And we've moved the umpire back to the offensive side as opposed to behind the defense. So, and we tested that out this past weekend at a scrimmage, and it worked out pretty good. Thank you for the film. I appreciate it. And looking at it, we've made a couple of tweaks on it, but I think it's going to be very productive for us and for the league and for the kids that we serve.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, and we've had our conversations about this off the air. But I mean, that's gonna be really interesting in terms of specifically the pile situation of that. Whoever comes out with the ball gets it. Uh, Actually, let me dig into that. So, take me through a game scenario. If there's a pile that is formed in a football situation, since you've said the officials aren't going after them, if you're blowing the whistles and players aren't coming off of the pile, are you going to have the coaches pull their guys off of the pile, or how is that going to work out if say you see an NFL situation where normally an official will be trying to dig in that pile and see where the play is, and they be grabbing players off of it? What's that scenario going to look like?
What I have found out about 98% of the kids that play 8-man football is that their coaches and their parents and the administrators, teachers, or whoever is influencing them have done an excellent job of being able to communicate to them on their response. And the reason why I say that is every school we serve almost has the word Christian in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that to be a plus more so than a minus. And I know that on Friday night, sometimes the word Christian gets lost in competition.
Right.
But I am still a true believer that in this particular league, those kids, those children, those young folks really have a real deep rooted understanding that they stand for something more than the level of competition.
Mm-hmm.
They stand for the logo on the side of that helmet, the name of the team that's on the back of that jersey. You have to understand that Shakespeare once said that a tragedy is just a comedy that's misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
I tell our guys all the time, that, you are what you repeatedly do. That was Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence should be a habit and not an act. I have found that the majority, now you're going to have an occasional kid that's just going to run wild, and that's
Right.
okay. That's part of football. But for the most part, I have found in this league, and that's why I'm so gratified and attracted to the beauty of MTAC, is because the kids seem to exercise a level of Christianity understanding where they bring their Sunday experience into their Friday experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not always the coaches and fans, but the
Right.
kids seem to understand it. And those are the ones that I'm really most concerned about. And so I think we'll be okay with that. I have more belief in those young men that are out there playing than I don't.
Right. Well, one last question for you. You mentioned you're going into your 44th year of officiating, and you started out with the TSSAA. You've come through to MTAC. You've been around the block. What would you say? What would you say if there's one or more? What would you say is the most fulfilling thing for you as a football official? Because you still do some of the grunt work. You coordinate, and you assign officials. You help train them, but at the end of the day, if you have to, you'll go down as a white cap on the field, and we've seen that from you several times. But what would you say is what would you say is the most fulfilling part of being a football official at the high school level?
When the kids on the field look back at you and say thank you, or when you're trying to correct them. See, sometimes the flag is not necessary, but the information is necessary. Uh, Coaches don't always like us talking to their kids, but someone has got to share with them what the expectation is of the officials on the field.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, kids are more responsive when you share with them, you're close. Let me tell you how to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the next play, you come back and tell them you got it right and give them that a boy. They appreciate that more than you
Yep.
would ever know.
That's called preventative officiating, and in that case, at the high school or college or the pro level, if you're preventative in that regard, then players are more willing to work with you and listen to you instead of just getting upset at the calls.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometime this year, I've got a group of guys that, when I say graduated from me, they go on to college. We have now put 36 people into the NCAA that came through our organization.
Wow. That's
But
great.
I've got a crew that I'm going to bring back where four of them came from our organization. One of them was a 7-time state championship referee in Georgia.
Wow.
And I'm going to bring them back to work a game in MTAC. And actually, they offer it because they want to give back. One of the positive and the most beautiful things about our organization is, and I call them our alumni. When our alumni go on, they always look to how they can give back. And I'm going to assign them to a game and use that film. I guarantee you it's going to be at a game you're covering.
I hope so.
But I'm going to use that film as a training opportunity.
Uh-huh.
They're going to be in town and they're going to stay here, put them up in a hotel or whatever. And then on Saturday morning, we're going to meet with our group and go over that tape so they can share best practices of what they saw and what they did on that game with our guys.
Right.
So there are so many tools at our disposal. And I mean, I've told coaches, I mean, one you just had on, I'm not about just grabbing 5 guys and throwing them on the field and telling them to get it done. I'm about an organization that's committed to the MTAC mission and partnering with them to get better each and every day.
Yep.
And I think that has been the biggest plus that we can have, in addition to the kids recognizing to the fact that, we're not there to be the police. We're not there to be the adversary. We're there to be a partner with you. So if we say or do something along the way, then our living hasn't been in vain. So we're okay.
Right. I just want to point out we had somebody comment on our because it's live. We had somebody comment, how many referee heads quote Shakespeare and Aristotle? 8-man is just better all the way around. So you got a compliment on there, that's for sure.
Well, blame Aristotle on my grandmother who finished the 2nd grade, and we didn't understand when she was telling us that when we were growing up that she was quoting Aristotle. Shakespeare I picked up during my high school years, but those were elements of my education that stuck with me. And I found that to be quantitatively information that I can share. I've shared with my children, and I've shared with anyone that I would have an opportunity to mentor, teach, and help make them better. I mean, if we can walk off the field and no one knows we're there, it's been a great day.
Yep.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I celebrate, respect, and expect fans and parents to be jaded toward their team. If you weren't, why are you there?
Exactly.
But that doesn't bother us. You're supposed to be like that. But what I have found in Impact is everyone maintains a level of civility that you don't find in other schools. You don't find in the 6A schools and TSSAA. You don't find in the 5A schools, the 4A schools. You just don't see them. The schools that claim that they're the cock of the walk, well, if you're the cock of the walk, why aren't you influencing your children to be better people?
Right.
And have an entitlement expectation that you never do anything wrong. And I have not run across that. And that was one of the things I respected about Scott, and I know he's no longer in the league, but I'm going to tell you, that guy, I loved working his games. Now, we only had away games because he didn't use us as a vendor, but I really, really like that dude. And not just him, but there are other guys. Tim Johnson coming in this year, is someone that I have a history with. LeBron coming in, someone I have a history with. Dustin, I've had him both now 11-man and 8-man, and from Ezel. When there's familiarity and there's access, I think that makes for it ultimately a better league and a better game day experience.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, Ronnie, I think it's fair to say you made a really great debut on Extreme Radio. There's a lot of good wisdom and good food for thought for those who tuned in, those who will listen back later on in the week. And I don't know if we'll see your crew at the Heat CCS game this Friday, but I know for sure we're going to see you guys in the coming weeks throughout all the MTAC games we're covering. We can't wait to deal with your crews again because they're all very very kind and hospitable, and we're really excited for another great season of 8-man football. So thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to come on the show, and let's definitely do this again sometime.
Well, thank you, and I'll look forward to it. Hopefully, I'll see you on the 28th. Wink, wink. Uh, again, I just want to thank you because one of the projects we're going to do this year, I think, is going to be amazing. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag because I think it's going to be beneficial. And it's COVID year. We want every resource we can have, and you have been instrumental in really helping with that. And I think it's going to help everybody be. I think it's going to help the overall game be exactly what it needs to be for everybody's experience.
Of course, absolutely. Thanks again, Ronnie. We'll definitely talk soon, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Again, Ronnie Perkins, coordinator and Whitecap referee for the Mid-State Officials Association, Middle Tennessee Football Officials Association. Just all around one of the great guys to work with for sure. All right. Well, as we've now announced, our color commentator for the season is Zachary Lone, and with that, we are going to get James Shannon, and he is not in studio, but he will be joining us via remote call. We're getting him in just a few moments. But Zachary, before we get into the actual pick'ems, this is going to be an interesting week because it's only one game to look at, but with all scrimmages going down, and because of this being a start on time, there are some schools that I believe will be doing games that don't count for the season, so their players can be put in real-time scenarios. It's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah, definitely. First week's always the toughest, especially like picking everything, because you know how they're gonna come out. Especially during this COVID year, because they haven't been able to play against other teams. All they do is against themselves. So defense knows what's plays coming. Offense knows defensive alignments and everything. So it's gonna be interesting to see, especially this Friday, how the Tennessee Heat and CCS react to in-game situations.
Well, joining us live remotely from somewhere in the northern parts of the Nashville area is James Shannon. And James, I know the season has been jumbled and it's been pretty crazy. I know we'll have you in studio next week, but tell me, did you already predict all of the games for the season, or are you still waiting for the schedules?
No, you obviously have to wait for the schedules, and hopefully we won't have to wait a few more weeks for that. But no, I'm waiting for the schedules. But obviously, we have a game Friday night to pick. I'm cruising in. By the way, I apologize for for the letdown of today not being my debut, or at least season debut. I feel like that's been a theme today. I feel a little bit smarter coming off that phone call. I like the YouTube channel Smarter Every Day, and I feel like I just listened to an episode of that, listening to Ronnie. But kind of blushing. And I will say this too. If we get to the game Friday night and the Tennessee Heat do not run out to the Devil Went Down to Georgia, I will be extremely disappointed. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be. I should have mentioned that to Ryan Scott when he had an interview on there. Should have mentioned that. But,
missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
I'm enjoying. So I'm getting ready to pick the game Friday. I'm coming off my back-to-back winning seasons in our annual Pick'em Challenge. I think the first year we tied. Shouldn't have really tied, but I digress. Which is my phrase now, my new phrase. But back-to-back championship years, and looking forward to picking up another dub this season.
Have you guys decided what your friendly wager is between you and the Jet Thompson?
I don't know, but honestly, from hearing his show last week, and I'm sure he can respond to this, but I think he kind of took my phrase, but I digress. So we might have to have the winner be able to keep that phrase. I don't know. The first year we did it was a fireball challenge. He had try that again. He had to eat fireballs during his season finale. Last year he had to buy a piece of merch from us. It's always a creative, but winning is always we got to get a belt. Is what we need to do. We need to get a championship belt, and whoever wins the year gets it for the entirety of the year. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, but of course, you're saying that you need to have a belt, but at least with your confidence level, you'd say I'm getting a belt just for myself because it's not leaving my house.
Hey Thompson, I'll call you out right now, and you can respond to this because I know you're listening. The loser this year has to buy a championship belt and ship it to the other person, and that person gets to keep it all year. There you go. There's the wager. I'm throwing the gauntlet down right now.
James
WWE style, throwing it down.
James already has the trophy cabinet ready for it.
Yes,
he's already made space.
I do. Legitimately, I do though.
I've seen that before.
It'll go right on top of the shelf that has my senior football, my diploma, and it'll go right there at the top. As I'll be very proud of that belt.
I saw that trophy.
A lot of hate will be garnered because to gain the belt, but risk of the job, boys.
I've seen that trophy shelf too. He built it. He's like, and here's where I would put my trophy if I had one.
If I had one, that's right. Listen, I even the second place trophy I got for being for how my team finished, my softball team finished this season. I even left it at the center in Springfield just so I had that top shelf available because for when I bring that belt home later on in the season. So there you go.
He's exuding with confidence as he usually does for this kind of stuff.
Listen. When you're back-to-back champ, you can have a little confidence.
You know, it's always hard to be him 3 times in a row.
Hey, I mean, I guess recent history's proven that. But
I'd agree. He digresses for sure. All right, time for us to get into the predictions, pick'ems, and we welcome Zachary now to it because you're going to be picking games this season. We might have some other people from the 8-Man Extreme team pick games throughout the season, but it's not a lot to pick from this week. It's only one game, so we will. Yes, James.
Zach, I know you're the newcomer, but listen, bud, the 2-time champ gets the first pick.
Gets the first pick.
Oh, okay. That's what we're going with you
it.
on the first pick. All right. So James, Tennessee Heat hosting Christian Community School, their first home game of the season, essentially the kickoff game for the 8-man football season in 2020 at Charlie Daniels Park, and it's one of those matchups that every year the Heat always have something cooking in their practice squads. You never know what's going to come with them. We were fortunate enough to see, as Ronnie mentioned, we were at scrimmage for CCS and got to test out several things, but we got to see a little bit of their play. You were there as well. So from what you've seen from Christian Community and combine that with what you've heard from Coach Ryan Scott on his interview, what is the back-to-back defending champions prediction for the kickoff game for 8-man football?
So first off, boys, let me go public with a big thank you to Coach Jeff Porter, Coach Flanders, the whole school. Obviously, will always hold somewhat of a special place in my heart as an alum. And it was really cool. You know, the things that people don't see behind the scenes that Ronnie was talking about. I was taking a Friday night, our last Friday night before we're booked for the next 3-4 months, if you count Florida. Just taking the last Friday night, going down there, doing a dry run of the equipment. I'm glad we did. Found some defective equipment that was broke, so I got an opportunity to fix that. But a big thank you to them. It was great to see some live football, some live hitting. But when I look at both of these teams, obviously Christian Community, one of the better teams last season, but they lost a lot of players. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost two of their 2 best receivers. They lost an anchor there on the line, on the offensive end, the defensive line as well. And then I look at the Tennessee Heat, and really they lost one guy, their center. Now obviously that's a big spot to replace. But boys, I mean, they bring back their quarterback, their 2 starting running backs, their 2 starting wide receivers, and 2 of their linemen, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball. That's not counting Carter Sutton, their tight end linebacker, who's a junior this year, and then a little old Aiden Luchtefeld, who a lot of people didn't get to see last year. He got injured early with a broken ankle, I believe, or no, collarbone against Freedom. So a lot of people didn't get to see him play last year. He's a sophomore. He's coming back strong. And, boys, you know what? Third time's a charm. For 3 years in a row, I've picked the Heat, and I've been proven wrong. But, listen, home game for the Heat. They got a lot of talent returning. I love you, CCS, but, hey, I'm taking the Heat to start out the year on fire.
I was telling Zachary before the show. There's an ongoing joke we have around here that's completely not true. It's just a joke for James, but we claim that James has both CCS and Heat bias because he is always predicting the Heat to win a game. But essentially, I think maybe he had them losing 2 games last year, and they ended up doing a complete flip-flop.
I was off by. I think I was off by. I think I was off by like 10 games last year out of 60 something
total, but I'm talking about
something?
specifically the Tennessee Heat schedule.
Yeah, I would have to go back and I'd have to go back and look at what I picked them. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't too far. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I don't think very many teams go undefeated all year because at some point somebody's going to knock everyone off. But you know.
When was the last time? The last time a team went completely undefeated, it was CCS 2018 in the regular season, but which is pretty recent. But,
yeah, and then they lost in the national. I mean, if you really want to talk not losing at all throughout the entire season. Now, of course, they didn't go to any kind of national tourney, but you had Lighthouse Christian back in 2014.
Yep.
Pull that feat off. So, and a lot of people would say, well, they didn't, like I said, they didn't go to a national title because you had South Haven in 2015 do it. CCS you mentioned in 2018. The Webb School in 2013 did it, and they ended up losing the national game. They had to play a semi before that, but so a lot of people would say, well, it doesn't count, but hey, it's an undefeated season, and hey, sometimes you just got to stop while you're ahead and cut it off, and have your undefeated season, and kudos to them. But we'll see if that can happen this year. There's a lot of interesting moving pieces to the season that's going to happen, and I think it'll be interesting.
Well, Zachary, you've studied film on the Heat from last year. I listened into Coach Scott's interview, and from what you combine that with what you saw from CCS on Friday, your first official pick'em with 8-Man Extreme.
Well, I mean, CCS has a bunch of talent, of course. You can see that Friday night. But the Heat, first home game, like you said, first home game. Pair that with COVID and everything that's going on. Not as many practices, not as much game flow, and always the first game. I always like to side with the home team because it's always tough to win your first game on the road. So I gotta go with the Heat.
It looks like we're not going to have anyone. Either both of you guys are going to win or you're going to lose this first game for the first game of the season. But hey, regardless of that, it's going to be a fantastic kickoff to the 8-man football season. As we already said, we're going to be there.
Let me clarify this. I do the pick'em for fun. Just to have a little fun, give a little bulletin board material. But listen, when I get to the game Friday, and I literally just want to see a great game. I'm not P. Rose. I don't have money sitting on the game. I literally just want to see a great football game, and I think we'll have that. 2 great teams, a great environment. I've never been to a game at Charlie Daniels, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the environment's like. But obviously, it's great for the Heat to be able to have a kind of a neutral site that they can turn into home. It's hard when you play at another school's field to kind of to create a true home game environment, and I'm excited for them to actually have that this season.
Yeah, and especially to honor the late Charlie Daniels in the first kind of the first. That'll be the first because there haven't been any other football games prior to this because the TSSAA start deadlines, but this will be the first football game played on Charlie Daniels Park since his passing. So it's going to be
without a producer's help. I have $5 that says you cannot name a Charlie Daniels song other than The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
I'm not taking that bet because I would lose.
Okay, all right.
I don't listen to country music that much.
In my pocket.
Yeah, it'll be $5 in your own pocket. I said I wouldn't take the bet.
Dak, how about you, buddy?
Give me a second. So you got The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Oh, come on. You big Charlie Daniels fans. Come on.
Oh man, I've listened to him in person too. God.
Yeah, I think I've told Spence this. I think I showed him a picture. I actually got to meet him a few years ago.
Okay.
At one of my jobs, he came in and he wasn't wearing the cowboy hat, but you could tell it was him. So I got a little selfie with him. So that was special. That was pretty cool. That was one that you can't turn down.
Hey,
and one that when you tell people, they say, no, there's no way, and then you show them the photographic evidence, and then they say, oh, wow, that's kind of cool, actually.
Hey, James, I'll take your bet.
All right, now that you've had time to Google.
I didn't Google. I didn't Google. I'm going to go long-haired country boy.
Okay. All right.
You
All right.
you
We'll
said
tell you
one.
what. I'll spot you supper Friday night.
Okay, well, since that
And by
you said
supper,
that,
I mean a McChicken small fry and a large sweet tea. There you go.
That's your supper. That's not his supper.
Does
Jeez.
that, Spence? Does that look like my supper? Come on, man. You've seen my suppers.
I mean,
That's like a midday snack.
well, when you add a sweet tea into the mix, it's always your supper. Man. Well, you heard it here first. The Heat, both Zachary and James are taking those, and that'll be our first game on call together. It's pre-prepared to see a rough broadcast, but we will get through it. At the end of the day, you could just put us on mute, and you can watch the game yourself, and you'll just be wondering what they're saying about when the replays are running, but be prepared for that. Christian community, the Colts collide with one of their oldest rivals, the Tennessee Heat, on Friday as the unofficial, official 8-man football kickoff. James, I'm about to sign off. You got any last thoughts before we go into the weekend?
Hey, a couple of shameless plugs into the weekend. What?
As we go into the end of this weekend, because it's technically weekend, but as we go into the first weekend of 8-man football games.
I mean, you know me, always shameless plugs. Go like up our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, our TikTok. Go like up the TikTok. That's right. Obviously, the YouTube channel. Let's get that jacked up. Keep a lookout at the end of this week for, and of course, it depends on when we get our schedule. When we get the schedules, we're going to try to get that helmet schedule out. We're going to try to get this preview out, and a couple things just kind of get to know the teams around the state. Especially if you're not familiar with some of these teams, like we mentioned last week, picking up the Freedom Cowboys in Huntsville. So you'll get to know a little bit about them, but a couple of stuff coming this week. So I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, I'm always full of shameless plugs, Spence.
We've also got some announcements that'll come out later in the week about some sponsors we've got on board and some special giveaways we'll be doing throughout. One sponsorship I can announce at this point. We finalized this in the off season. One announcement that we went on is the.
Oh, Spence, let's do this. Spence. Before you do it, let's do it next week with the inaugural player.
Yep, it's a player.
Let's do a
It's
teaser.
title sponsor for the player of the week, and we'll reveal that next week. So
there you go. You got to give people a reason to come back because it's definitely not for our analysis.
No, of course not. It's not for yours. Maybe it's for mine. It's
no,
not for yours.
Down. Well, no, I'm see, but people want to see what controversial thing I'm going to say next. I've already accepted it.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm the most controversial figure in sports. Wait, who's walking in? They see it's him, the James Shannon. So. All right, well, that's going to wrap up Extreme Radio presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com. Mention you're with 8-Man Extreme when you request your appointment online, and that'll give you $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. On behalf of everybody else here in studio, Spencer Thompson signing off. We'll see you for Heat CCS this weekend.